know what time it is? It is tether time. Alright, so today we're going to be talking about area. So what is area? So area has to do with how many little, imagine these little squares. Alright, so if we're dealing with centimeters, imagine a little square that's a centimeter by a centimeter. So what we're talking about is how many of those little squares can I fit inside of a shape. That's what we mean about area. How much can I fit inside that shape? Alright, so the first one you're going to see on your foldable is rectangle/square. So I'm going to put these together. Alright, so I want you to remember, a square is always a rectangle. Because let's define a few things. A square means it is a four-sided figure that all four sides are the same measurement and it has four right angles. A rectangle has four right angles and two sides are the same. So these two are these two. Well, a square fits that definition as well. So a square can be a rectangle, but not all rectangles are squares. Okay, so let's establish that right quick. Alright, so let's define how to find the area of a rectangle or square. So we're going to have something called length and width. And how we find the area inside of this is I'll multiply these two numbers. Length times width. So I'm going to write that over here. So length times width. Alright, so we're going to define these. We do length times width. So if I had a few examples, so on your paper you got a few examples. We got an 8 centimeter by 6 centimeter. Let's write down the formula. I'm going to give it a color. Alright, so our formula, A equals length times width. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my length, 8 centimeters, and I'm going to multiply that to my width of 6 centimeters. And I'm going to multiply those. Well, 8 times 6 is 48. Now, you also have to put units on these. So we establish this by doing centimeters squared. Okay, so you put a little 2 as the exponent. So the area of this is 48 centimeters squared. So what that means is if I had some little squares that were a centimeter by a centimeter, I could fit 48 of them inside of the shape. Alright, example 2. We got a square. How do I know it's a square? These little lines mean that all four sides are the same. So this is the same formula. A equals length times width. Well, in this case, my length and width are the same number, 3 feet. So we're going to plug that in, 3 feet by 3 feet. Well, 3 times 3 is 9, and I have feet squared. Make sure you don't leave off that unit. You've got to include the unit there. So we have 9 feet squared. So now, your next part of your folder was a parallelogram. Well, what is a parallelogram? Parallelogram is a four-sided figure where two sides, opposite sides, are parallel. Remember, for lines to be parallel, that means they don't touch. They don't touch. They never touch. So, these two sides will never touch, and these two sides will never touch. Well, I also want you to realize a rectangle and a square are also a parallelogram. But let's look at this. So a parallelogram, we have a thing called a base. So that's your base down there. That's part of the side. But then we multiply that by this height right here. So they're going to give you a height. Don't use this slant height. Use this number. Okay? And so to find the area here, we do base times height. Alright, so let's look at a couple examples. So we have this first one. Our base is 4, so let's first write down the formula. Area equals base times height. So I have 4 inches is my base, and my height is 1.5 inches. So we're going to multiply those two. So 4 times 1.5 is 6, and I'm going to put inches squared. So that means I can fit 6 little squares that are inch by inch inside the shape. Alright, our next one's a little different. What they've done is they took it and tilted. Alright, they took it and tilted. So we got to first establish what is our base. Well, our base is going to be this number. Remember, the base is part of the parallelogram. It's one of the sides. So area equals base times height. So my base is 5.75 meters. My height is 3. meters. And so we're going to multiply those things. And when I do multiply, I see that this is 17.25 meters squared. All right, so we've talked about rectangles and squares, and we talked about parallelograms. So remember, big thing with rectangles and squares you got to remember is area equals length times width, and my parallelogram, area equals base times height. They're really the same formula, okay? Because this could be length and this could be our width. We just don't call this width because it's the height of the parallelogram. All right, but these two are the first two we're going to fill out. Now we're going to fill out the next two, which have to do with triangles and trapezoids, the two T's. All right, so let's get started. Whoa. All right, so let's get to triangles and trapezoids now. All right, so to find triangles, the area, we have to do something weird, kind of. We do base times height, but then we're going to divide that by 2 because a triangle is actually half a rectangle. So remember, rectangle parallelogram, it was base times height or length times width, but we're going to take half of that. So what it's going to look like is base times height divided by 2. So if you have a triangle like this, this is your base, and actually this side is your height. So triangles are a little tricky because they can give you the height in the middle, or they can give you the height as one of the sides. You're going to have to see what kind of triangle it is. All right, so for here, we have area equals base times height divided by 2. My base is 6. My height is 10. And I divide that by 2. All right, so 6 times 10 is 60. We divide that by 2 and we get 30. I forgot to put the units on there. 30 centimeters squared. Okay, let's try the next one. All right, let me grab a calculator right quick. All right, so I have 3.2 times 5.6. So we're going to multiply those two. Now this is your base, and this is the height of the triangle. Okay, so area equals 5.6 times 3.2 divided by 2. So let's do a little math. So I have 5.6 times 3.2, take half of that, and I see that I get 8.96. So 8.96 inches squared. So a triangle, you do base times height divided by 2. Let's look at the trapezoid. Trapezoid is going to be your hardest one. It's going to be the weirdest one. So we have two bases. We have base 1 and base 2, and then we have a height. So what do we actually do for a trapezoid? Is we add our two bases. So base 1 plus base 2. Divide that by 2 and multiply that whole thing by the height. So really what we're doing is we're finding the average size of our two bases. So we add them and divide by 2, and then we multiply by the height. So let's try that on a few of these examples right here. So we have area equals base 1 plus base 2 divided by 2 times our height. So we add the two bases, 2 plus 5 divided by 2 times our height, which is 1.5. Alright, so we grab a calculator, we do a little math, so that'll be 3.5 times, clear it out, 3.5 times 1.5, and we get 5.25. So the area of this first one is 5.25 inches squared. So we're going over that real fast. Add the two bases, 2 plus 5, divide that by 2, and then multiply by our height. Now this trapezoid, just like the triangle, sometimes they give you the height as part of the trapezoid. So we're going to do the same thing on this one. So area equals 3.4 plus 5.1. I'm going to divide that by 2, and then I'm going to multiply by my height of 2.3. Okay, so let's do a little math. So we do 3.4 plus 5.1, divide that by 2 times 2.3, and we get this decimal of 9.775 centimeters squared. I kind of ran out of room there. All right, so trapezoid. Add your two bases, divide by 2, and multiply by your height. And then this is triangles. base times height divided by 2. And remember, rectangles, squares, and parallelograms are just like the same. They're base times height, they're length times width. So we've reviewed area now. You've got that foldable filled out. Let's go try a few examples. You got this, because next we're going to get into circles starting later this week. So I know we got to review area, but I know you can do it. Let's get it done.